This activity is called You, Me, and Conflict. I'm going to ask you all to think about a word that represents how you feel about conflict. And there's a couple different dimensions that you can think of, and I have them all written out on this slide so you can reference them. So some things to consider. In terms of the size of your word, think about your comfort level with conflict. So if you make your word really small or the font size really small, it's showing that you're really uncomfortable with conflict. You don't like it. If you make it a lot bigger, that's showing that you feel okay with conflict. Proximity, so the closer you place it to the word conflict, that shows that I would confront it head on. I'm not afraid of it. And then the further away from conflict that you put your word shows that you don't want to confront it at all. You can also think about the color. So green could represent you have a positive reaction to it. Neutral reaction could be yellow, and red could be a negative reaction to conflict. And then you can also think about your font. So what's your style with dealing with conflict? Are you bold? Are you more easygoing or like traditional? Feel free to be creative with your words. Okay, so we can go around and share what you put on the slide.
The words that I put are in the top left-hand corner, and it just says avoid, 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 in a very light gray, because I figured that gave a good vision of like me just fading into the background. And I think it's interesting what Jane said in terms of like, I think I've always thought of this in terms of being like how I handle big conflicts, like conflicts with friends or family. But I think like thinking about like, let's say someone gets my order wrong at a restaurant, like I'm still somebody who will just like sit there and and eat it and be fine with it. And so I think that that applies to a lot of things in my life. And so I originally had it on the page, but then when I started to think into the ways that that kind of creeps into other areas of my life or less serious conflicts, I was like, maybe that's more of a pattern that I have in terms of how I respond. And then the font I chose is called Trebuchet, which is a form of a catapult, and so also used to kind of catapult me away from conflict even further.
You can do multiple rounds, asking participants to respond in different ways to different types of conflict. You can use words, pictures, or GIFs to show how participants respond to conflict with authority, conflict with friends, or conflict at work. Depending on the round, have everyone explain what they chose, or just have participants look around at what other people added.
Cool. So we're going to talk about conflict with an authority figure. And what I'm going to have you do is look for a GIF that represents how you feel about this situation. So conflict with an authority figure. Thank you everyone for putting your GIFs and pictures on this board. Take a minute to look at what everyone else has added.